Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
Hello, I'm Twyla Kim. I've been an artist and hairstylist in Santa Barbara for 20 years. I personalize color, design, and precision haircuts for each individual at Sequel Salon in Montecito. I'm happy to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with them and watch them.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it. Hello, I'm Patricia Diorio, and this is Get Conscious Now. Welcome to the inspirational talk show about what it means to live consciously in today's crazy, chaotic world. Our episode tonight is about conscious parenting, a topic that is very important for the future of our world. With me is my witty and handsome co-host, Stu Zimmerman, and we promise you a wonderful show tonight, so stay tuned. Stu, do you have some words of welcome to our audience?
I do, and thank you for calling me witty and handsome.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm honored.
I always speak the truth.
Thank you very much. I'm coming handy today, as always. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Get Conscious Now. We have a fabulous show for you today, and it's not just today, because we have a whole library of fabulous shows that we'd love for you to check out. So please come to our YouTube channel and search Get Conscious Now to find all of them, including one with Deepak Chopra, which I know is a fantastic one that you're going to want to see, as well as countless others in all kinds of topics ranging from education to conscious media to healthcare and beyond. So come join us there, and also friend us on Facebook and say hi and let us know who you are, and we get to communicate to you that way directly. And with that, Patricia, why don't you introduce our guest?
I will. So in today's world, where there are 80 wars currently being waged and corrupt governments oppressing their people, by the way, ours is included in that in my estimation, where drug addiction is rampant, where gun violence is absolutely ridiculous, where child abuse and domestic violence is still off the charts, this topic of raising children consciously, aware parenting, is critically important, is foundational to us moving forward in the environment and in the evolution of humanity. We're fortunate to have with us today Dr. Aletha Solter, a woman who has dedicated her life to educating people in an approach to raising children that are competent, cooperative, compassionate, nonviolent, and drug-free. Dr. Solter is a developmental psychologist who is the founder of the Aware Parenting Institute. And early in her career, she had the honor and distinction of studying with renowned Swiss psychologist Piaget, and she subsequently received her PhD from UCSB. She is also the author of 5 brilliant books on child rearing, and she is considered recognized an expert internationally in the area of attachment, trauma, and non-punitive discipline. Parents that have raised their children employing Aletha's methods raise children who are really well-adjusted and a contribution to society. So I'm really thrilled and honored to be welcoming Dr. Solter to Get Conscious Now today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Wonderful
I appreciate
to have
your
you
introduction.
here.
Thank you very much. It's
You're
good to
very
be here.
It's wonderful to be here. So I'm going to kick off the interview by asking you to give us a little bit more information about yourself and your background and what led you up to this point in time where you're doing this amazing work.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I studied with Piaget, but before that, I was actually intending to become some kind of scientist. My father was a scientist, so I thought I'd go into science. So I actually, I was living in Geneva, Switzerland at the time. I spent my youth in Geneva, Switzerland, and in the university, I enrolled in a program called Human Biology. And so my master's degree was in biology. And part of that program was Jean Piaget's 2-year course. So that got me interested in psychology, and especially the development of children. And then I came to the US and got my PhD at UCSB. And then I met my future husband. We got married, and we decided to have children. So before my first child was born, I thought I was an expert on child development before he was born. After he was born, I realized how little I knew, actually. So I had 2 convictions, and one was that I didn't want to punish him. And my husband and I agreed on this. We didn't want to punish our children. I myself had never been punished. I had a wonderful childhood. And I just I knew it was possible, so I wanted to, raise my son that way. The other conviction is that, I'll explain in a minute, but it came out of my very early experience with trauma. When I was 5 years old, I had a traumatic experience. I was hospitalized in isolation for 1 to 2 weeks. I don't remember exactly, but it was very traumatic for me. No one was allowed to visit me. And for years after that, it was just kind of there, that memory. And I was terrified of hospitals. I was terrified of separations from my mother. So I wanted to somehow raise my son so that he could heal from any traumas that might happen along the way. And I myself had healed from that early trauma. I'd found a way to heal from it. And part of it was through talking about it and crying about it. So basically, I wanted to raise my children to be able to express their emotions, to cry when they were sad, and tell us if they were angry, and just kind of be really open with letting them express emotions.
Yes, that's a very unusual way, I think, of raising children, at least in our generation. I mean, that is not at all how I was raised. So I can understand why you're such an expert at what you're doing, because you experienced it early on through a decision, a conscious choice. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So tell us more about what exactly is aware parenting, and how do you define awareness in this context?
Right. Okay, so aware parenting, I define it with 3 main aspects, okay, that really characterize what it is. It's attachment parenting, attachment style parenting, meaning really paying attention to the parent-child connection, okay? It's non-punitive discipline. And the third aspect is the healing from stress and trauma. So I teach parents how to do this, how to help their children heal, how to form a secure attachment, and how to avoid using punishment. So, and it's all research-based. This is my scientific background, so it's all based on studies. There are lots of studies out there. So part of my mission is to get this knowledge that we have from scientific research in child development and trauma, and get that information out to the parents who need it, who don't have this information.
So the 3 basic aspects, and could you tell us a little bit more about attachment?
Attachment is the foundation of it all, really. Attachment is making sure that connection is very strong right from the start, before birth, too, if possible. You can actually connect with your child before birth. And it involves, there's different aspects that all contribute towards a healthy attachment, and one of them is lots of holding, lots of connection, lots of holding. I do recommend co-sleeping if it works for the family, and I know it doesn't work for all families, but I do recommend it. There's nothing wrong with co-sleeping.
So let's define our terms here.
Yeah, co-sleeping
Please,
is,
let's go.
Yeah, allowing the child in your bed, in the parental bed, or right next to it, in the same room. right next to the parents.
Now, are there prescribed ages where that is appropriate, or possibly ages which not so appropriate?
Well, I feel that the first 3 years are very important in terms of this, the need for nighttime closeness. And again, not all families want to do that, but really feel it can help to strengthen the attachment. So so it's not yet mainstream, but it was all in all of prehistory. This was the way mothers slept with their babies. It would have been way too dangerous to leave an infant alone.
So a question's coming up here, right off the top here.
Yeah.
Let's say parents want to have some intimacy in nighttime.
Okay.
Every now and then that happens,
every
even
now
after
and
the
then.
child is born.
Yeah.
How would a child's presence in the room be a positive or otherwise indicated, or?
Well, families who do co-sleeping, and that is the current term for it, they become very creative. So, you know, the family bed doesn't have to be the bed for intimacy. There are other rooms in the house. There's, you know, people can arrange their schedules. There's just a lot of flexibility and a lot of creative solutions that parents do.
I'm sure you would work out a creative
some-
solution. You did have 5 kids.
Yeah, I did. And the truth be told, I really didn't emphasize co-sleeping in my, in my raising of the children.
I mean, some parents have the children fall asleep in a separate room, and then when the parents are ready to go to sleep, they bring them to the family bed, or wait until the children wake up at night, and then they bring them in. Or there's just all sorts of ways of meeting everybody's needs, and that's the crux of it, is meeting everybody's needs.
Can we talk a little bit about the distinction between the role of the father and the role of the mother in this? Because it does seem that early in a child's life, the mother seems to have the closer physical bond, having carried the child, et cetera.
Yeah.
And and through nursing as well, for that matter.
Right.
So how can you give us a little sense of the different roles that each parent plays here?
Yeah, well, I do recommend breastfeeding. That's part of the attachment connection. Part of creating that connection is breastfeeding, so I highly recommend nursing. And obviously only the mother can do that. So she does have a special role. But I feel that the father can have a really important role right from the start. And I don't think fathers need to feel secondhand or pushed aside. They can really do a lot. And there's some families that get really into a form of attachment parenting where the mother and child bond is kind of exclusive and the father feels left out. It doesn't have to be that way. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's too healthy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So stress and trauma, huge for children, right? You had your own experience of it, and
right.
And I had my share as well as a child. So what are the techniques that you work with in helping children to move past their traumatizations in their youth, when they're very young?
Well, that's a big part of this whole project. It is the third aspect of aware parenting, is helping children heal from stress and trauma. First of all, the recognition that stress and trauma are there. I mean, it used to be people would say, oh, babies, they don't have any stress, they don't have any trauma. Well, it's, what's so stressful about being a baby? Well, birth itself can be a very stressful event. So there can be stress right from the start, and trauma, okay?
Well, I was just, excuse me for interrupting, but I was just going to add that Dr. Bruce Lipton, I'm a fan of his work, The Biology of Belief. I mean, he says that trauma can take place in utero.
In utero.
When you have, you have family violence, domestic violence in the family, or fear in the mother. All of that goes right into the fetus and into the subconscious, as traumatizing programs that will show up later on in life, which is why so many people are in therapy.
Yes, exactly. I mean, in utero, we're not totally protected from the world in utero. Baby hears everything, feels the mother's emotions, gets the stress hormones from the mother, and so on. And so there's interesting research that shows that babies who have experienced early stress, either prenatally or through a traumatic birth, a complicated birth with medical interventions and near-death experiences, that kind of thing, those babies cry more than other babies who have not had these early traumas. And so my approach is, my theory is that crying is probably serving a purpose. And what I recommend is what I call the crying in arms approach, where for parents to just hold their babies through these crying episodes and just love them and hold them and say, I love you, I know it's hard, you've had a hard start here. You can cry as much as you need to in my arms. So that's one way that babies and children can heal from stress and trauma. And as children get older, they may need to have temper tantrums. If they've had it's very frustrating being 2 years old. There's lots of frustrations. There's lots they can't do that they want to do. There's lots they're not allowed to do. So, and then they have these meltdowns. Those are actually healthy. Those are actually beneficial. And there's interesting research on crying that shows that it is indeed a beneficial stress release mechanism. So I recommend to parents to not try to stop these expressions of emotions.
Well, it feels good when you're crying. Even though you may be sad, there is a release, and it feels good to just let it out instead of just swallowing our tears.
That's right. Yeah. It's a very healthy thing to do.
I also know that it can be challenging when a child is crying, especially a child that you want to be happy, and they're crying. And I can only imagine that parents, find difficulty in staying in their heart and embracing and having that sense of compassion when that crying could be triggering their own self-doubt as to how good a parent they are. If
Exactly.
Some people think that, I'm not a good parent if my child is crying.
Yes.
And so now I'm beating myself up, and I'm supposed to be helping this child at the same time, and it's not really working.
You're right. And interesting that you said that, because there's actually research showing that crying is the most potent trigger for child abuse.
Wow.
A baby crying, a toddler screaming in the night, having a meltdown. That is the most potent trigger for child abuse. They interviewed abusive parents, and we're not talking about sexual abuse. That's different dynamics. We're talking about physical violence. And 80% of the abusive parents who'd been arrested, 80% said it's the crying that triggered my anger.
They couldn't handle it.
They couldn't handle it. And that's one reason I am so motivated to spread this information about the importance of crying. It doesn't mean that the parent is a bad parent. It doesn't reflect, the baby's not saying you're being a bad parent. Not all crying is an immediate need. And that's very important for parents to know who are quick to anger. It doesn't mean they're inadequate. It doesn't mean they're incompetent.
Yeah, that's an important point you just mentioned about there's not necessarily an immediate need.
Right.
Because that's, I know men are supposedly more in fix-it mode
Yes.
than women are.
Yeah.
So I want to fix it. The child is crying. Okay, what can I do? But if there's really nothing to be done because there's no immediate need to meet for the crying to subside, then that could be particularly maddening to a parent who is looking to, kind of make things better.
And that's the time when we need to just surrender to what is,
Well, it's almost comforting to know that you don't really have to know. I mean, if you take care of the basic needs and it's not about the basic needs, then there's something else going on. You're obviously not going to know what it is, right? That the child is struggling with. But it's comforting to just know to just hold that child and love that child. Yeah. And even if they're kind of kicking and screaming, you can still hold that space around that child of love. No matter what you're going to do, I'm going to love you. I'm always going to be here for you.
That's it, exactly. The bottom line is that children need to know they're loved and accepted no matter how they're feeling. If they get even the slightest idea that we don't want to be around them when they're upset, or we find them too loud, we find them obnoxious, they're going to feel that we love them conditionally instead of unconditionally. Okay? Mommy only likes me when I'm smiling. Okay? And that's not the message we want to give.
Yes, I've noticed the same thing holds true in relationship.
Yes, with
This is
any
not just
relationship.
a matter of kids now at this point.
Yes.
Because you know we're all humans here, and we all have a spectrum of feelings that even though I like to live on the lighter side of life and be happy and what have you, to be able to hold the space and just be unconditional in
That's
the
right.
love
That's
for whatever
right.
does show up.
This is true for every relationship.
For every
I mean, every relationship deepen when we can really listen to the other person's deep emotions.
Right, where you can really be
And accept.
transparent with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you deal then with parents that have had a very painful childhood and they know that they had a lousy childhood or a hurtful childhood or they had an event in their childhood that was very traumatic? They even know it, but knowing it to me is a part of being able to shift it. We have to be aware that we have a trigger and a pattern.
Yes.
But how do you work with parents like this then?
Yeah, that's a very important question, and that's a big part of what I do is helping parents overcome their childhood. And what happens is that parents get triggered. I mean, we talked about crying, that's a big trigger. There's other triggers, lots of triggers. And I tell parents, you're going to get to relive your childhood whether you want to or not, when you have children. At some point, I mean, you will be reminded of just about everything in your own childhood just because your child does these things that maybe you were punished for, and that's going to trigger you. So parents, what is helpful for parents is to, first of all, remember, like you said, because trauma that's unconscious, that's forgotten, that's been repressed, that's the most insidious. That's the most dangerous kind of trauma. If we don't remember, we can't recall it. It's there affecting us, affecting our reactions, and yet we can't really consciously, we don't know why we get so upset with our kid.
Right.
So
They're unaware parents.
Unaware parents. So being aware of what happened to us is the first step. The second step is talking about it and crying about it, raging about it, saying to our parents what we needed to say as children. Not in real life. I'm saying to a therapist, or just saying those words, or writing them down, or so getting back into how we felt as a child, really feeling that. And if it brings tears, great. That's part of the healing process. If it brings anger, great. We need to express anger at our own parents, whether they're still alive or not.
Right.
There may be unhealed fears. There may be traumas that weren't caused by our parents. That, like my hospital experience, I needed to talk about it and cry about it and just work through that. So that's.
Did you do that?
I did.
Oh, you did
as
do
a young
that.
adult.
As a young adult, but as a little girl,
as a
baby.
Girl, I was 5 years old.
Oh, you were 5. You could talk about it, but they probably figured everything was fine since you weren't talking about it.
Yeah, I didn't show any overt signs at that point. It's just that later, when I got picked up from the hospital when I was 5, I didn't speak for a whole day. I remember I didn't speak. I was just I felt out of place in my family. I felt like I didn't belong. Yeah. So that was kind of strange when I think about it,
Sure.
And then I just started acting normal, I guess.
So you probably needed to have that experience in order for you to really be doing the work.
Yeah, I think so.
Today.
So in retrospect, it was a good experience. Because I learned something.
So as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Bruce Lipton's work, and he says that these belief systems, imprints, and programs that we get plugged into pretty much run us until we can become aware that we have them, so then we can make that conscious choice to change. But there are modalities and protocols out there that assist people in doing that. Do you employ any specific techniques or modalities to help people to shift those programs?
No, not really. I just I help parents on an individual basis. I do consultations with parents. They consult with me in person, by phone, or by Skype, and I also lead workshops for parents. So one of the workshops I do is what I call my advanced workshop, and there we really go into childhood emotions and feelings. And people, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of exercise in small groups, and we really get get to these childhood childhood pain. It's no specific modality except just finding someone to listen to us. That, to me, that's the most important thing we can do.
Mm-hmm. Are you
Finding
familiar
a
with the
listener.
energy psychology that's out there now, the EFT, emotional freedom technique, and the tapping, and EMDR, and many of them, holographic repatternning. I mean, there's quite a few of them. I would think that would be very effective. In your work.
I'm not trained specifically in those techniques, but people have told me they find them helpful. Right.
Yeah, because that really is where the rubber hits the road.
And there's people who gravitate more towards different kinds of approaches. Whatever works. I say whatever works.
Whatever works.
Yeah. There's people who benefit greatly from body work that, massages that brings up emotions, because we do store our emotions in our tension muscles in our body. So that helps some people. So I think different people respond to different modalities.
I know we kind of glossed over, maybe probably hopped over altogether, the second of the three primary aspects of aware parenting, and you talked that was about non-punitive.
Right, non-punitive discipline. That's a big part of it.
Okay, because I should be taking notes on this. It's a good thing on video. I'll probably have to watch this a few times because that's been an area of mine. Not that I'm a heavy-handed disciplinarian, yet the idea of not having timeouts and not having some form of punitive discipline in my arsenal, or at least the threat of it.
I know. We tend to discipline children the way we were raised. And it's very difficult if you were raised, a little bit authoritarian, maybe with some punishment, maybe with some hitting, maybe with some timeouts. It's very difficult to even conceive of a different way of doing things because we weren't raised, we didn't have the role models. Right. And some people think it's, then you're totally permissive if you don't punish, you must be totally permissive. It's not permissiveness either. There's a whole different way of relating to children. And basically, just briefly, my approach to discipline, the key is looking beneath the surface and figuring out why children are acting the way they do, and trying to figure out what needs there are, what feelings there are. Because children act in very difficult ways when they are feeling upset or stressed or they have unhealed trauma. Sometimes they might just have a need. Maybe they're just hungry, needing attention, okay? And maybe they're lacking information. So the three reasons, what I call the three reasons for misbehavior: an immediate need, lacking information, or dealing with painful emotions. And once we see what's really going on for the child, then we can find a solution that doesn't involve punishment. But it takes some effort. And every situation is different. So there's no pat solutions, no Band-Aid solution. You can't just say, okay, time out, or 1, 2, 3, this, or do that. It's just every situation is different. So it involves creativity.
I just thought of a question. You know how Dr. Spock was like the go-to psychologist or child psychologist when our parents, is there someone today that holds that space in parenting? Or, I would love to see you hold that space in parenting because this is the kind of parenting that we need to have, the future of our planet. But is there someone that's kind of like the go-to person like Spock was when we were little?
There's lots out there. There's no one single. And there's other people saying similar things to what I'm saying. I'm not the only one. I think my synthesis of those three elements we mentioned, the attachment, parenting, non-punitive discipline, and healing from stress and trauma. That particular synthesis, I think, is unique. But there's lots of good stuff out there. I think we're progressing as a species. I really do.
Yes,
we're coming out of the you know, the top, what I call the top-down authoritarian parenting mode. We're getting away from feeling we have to do things to children, and we're moving towards working with children. So it's sort of like doing things to children. That was the past, you know, you do this. Working with children, we're on the same level. And there's mutual respect there, and everyone's needs are getting met.
Okay, so I got one for you. With 5 kids, right? So I have a son who's 16. Nathan, I love you. And, you know, 16-year-old, they're having their own sense of individuation and testing boundaries. And made an agreement with him that he needs to be home with the car by a certain time. And if he's not, there's going to be a consequence. And the consequence would be that he'd be grounded or lose his driving privilege for a period of time. Did my best to put the ball back in his court, saying, this is not my decision at this point. Now it's your decision. If you're going to be home by 11, then everything is fine. If you come home after 11, then there's going to be a consequence, and it's basically your choice as to what it's going to be. Now, in that case, the consequence really is a form of punitive grounding, even though it's kind of set up in advance rather than an immediate reaction to something. What do you think?
Well,
I can handle it. I can handle it if I'm way off.
I can tell you what I did with my children.
Sure.
In terms of curfews, I remember my son in particular, I would ask him, what time do you think you'll be home? And he would say when he thought he would be home. I said, okay, would you be willing to call me if it's going to be later than that? Because the whole point of a curfew is so we don't have to worry. So I kind of looked at it from that angle. And he always, once in a while he called, he was running a little late, and he would let us know. But he was usually home, because I let him kind of set it. So I kind of came at it from that whole point of view. The issue is safety. The issue is knowing where our children are. And I think we do need to know where they are and at what point we need to start worrying, right? So that's how I dealt with that. Now, if a child came late and hadn't called, I mean, the consequence would be that I would share my feelings of being very upset and very frightened. And I think, and that's where the connection comes in. If you establish a good connection, that your feelings are going to be important to the child. And if you're worried, if you're frightened, and you share that, they're not going to want to have you be frightened by their behavior, okay, and worrying about them. So that's sort of where I'm coming from for that particular issue.
When my son was a teenager in high school, and the kids would go out, he had a curfew. He had a curfew that we set together, and I think it was like on the weekend, it was midnight. And I said to him, it's your decision if you decide to come in later than that. And if you come in later than, you know, if you're going to be later than midnight, be sure that you call me so I don't worry about you. But if you decide to stay beyond midnight, then you're going to have to accept responsibility for your decision as to what occurs the next day and how tired you are. So what I would do is I would let him make the decision and then deal with the consequences. If it was a good decision, there wouldn't be negative consequences, but not in a punitive way, just in a way of him accepting. And I can remember when he was in the high chair, you know, giving him a choice between this cereal or that cereal, helping him make decisions really early on. And I think that really helped him in his formative years. And now he's 44.
Oh, wow.
Well, what's interesting is, I happen to notice in my case that in an odd way, my son appreciated being grounded and having boundaries set, because I'm a single parent right now. And so there are times when I'm busy and he's doing off on his own thing, and maybe he's not getting as much attention from me or whatever, and I sometimes wonder if he's just trying to test to see if I'm in the game here and if I'm paying attention to his comings and goings. And I'm not saying that his, going beyond curfew was a cry for discipline in a way to be closer or whatever, or to see that I care. But I've noticed that there are times when children have responded well to a form, not violent punishment, but a form of, I would definitely call it some form of punitive discipline. When I was a child, when I was a teenager, I had my, I called my mother something I shouldn't have, and my father was very dispassionate about it. Said, "Come here," led me to the bathroom, put me in a gentle headlock, and washed my mouth out with soap. I got to tell you something. I remember that one very vividly, not as a traumatic experience, but just as something that, okay, I know that I crossed the line. My father let me know that I crossed the line. And the truth is, I've passed on that tradition to my boys who got out of line with their mothers and did the same thing. And for some strange, also not in anger, which I think was one of the keys to it. That if it had been done in anger where I was really afraid that I was going to be hurt physically, it would have been a different experience for me. But because he was very calm and measured, and this is what's happening, and this is why it's happening, and you're not going to do this again, are you? Because this is so unpleasant. It was effective, and I actually think it was effective with my boys too.
Interesting, yeah. One thing I recommend to parents who want to get away from the punitive approach is to have family meetings with their children once a week and discuss the problems, discuss the behavior problems, the conflicts of needs, and come to some agreement. And there can be consequences, but if everyone agrees that that's what it's going to be, for example, my children who left their stuff around in the living room, and we had a family meeting once a week, and that was one of the issues I brought up once. And the solution we reached was that they would clean up by dinner time. I could live with that, a few hours of mess, okay? But then we needed a reminder, because they kind of forgot, so we brought it up at the next family meeting after a few weeks. And then we came to the agreement that whoever had stuff in the living room would have their plate upside down at the dinner table as a reminder that they don't get to eat until it's cleaned up. But we reached that through consensus. We all agreed that that would be the consequence, that you don't eat dinner until you've cleaned up the living room.
Well, I think consensus is the way to go there, because then they're part of the
decision. That gets out of the authoritarian
Yes, it gets out of the authoritarian mode, and you can solve a lot of conflicts through family meetings. Yeah.
So you had them with your children growing up.
Yes,
that's great.
We did.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Good. Do you have testimonials that you can give us today?
Yes.
I would really.
Did I send them to you?
Oh, we're just curious in general
how
children really are, and the parents. How are they all responding to away?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect you to be reading them verbatim.
I don't have anything to read, but many parents have written to me and told me that they would have become abusive without my book, especially my first book, The Aware Baby. And the crying, the understanding of the crying, I think, has been a big help for many parents, and they've thanked me for that. So that's very gratifying, of course, that I have helped parents avoid being abusive. Yeah, there's people who've told me they've stopped spanking their children because of my work, or just after attending a workshop. They've stopped using time out. They have a better relationship with their kids. So it's all very gratifying to know that I can help families that way. Yeah.
That's great.
Have you heard it all from any of the kids in terms of how they have, responded or feel, especially in contrast to some of their friends and their peers who may not have had the same upbringing?
I haven't heard directly from kids, but some of them are grown up now and raising their children this way. My own grandchildren are being raised this way, which is very exciting for me.
How old are your grandchildren?
7 and 10, almost 11. Yeah.
So what are you noticing about how they are being raised, or are they noticing anything different than how some of their friends are being raised?
I think kids do notice when their parents don't punish. They do notice at school that other children maybe don't have that same kind of environment at home. I remember my daughter, she first heard the word spanking. She was 6 years old. She was playing at a friend's house, and a friend had said to her, well, if you jump on the bed, my father will spank you, because that's probably what had happened to her. And so my daughter came home and said, what does spank mean? You know, what? And she was frightened, and she didn't want to go play there anymore. And so, you know, they do notice that things are different in other people's homes. Yeah.
That's interesting. It was a completely foreign language.
It is.
A language of violence is just, obsolete.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you how, perception is everything. When you're raised in an environment that's like that, and a wonderful environment, a healthy environment like that, the assumption a lot of children make is that that's going to be the environment that other kids have too.
That's right.
But it's not.
But it's not.
Yeah. In a way, it's a good thing to be raised that way, and also to help children understand that there are other environments.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You've had a new book out recently, right? The Attachment Play?
Attachment Play.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Attachment Play?
I'm excited about it. It's, when you asked me about how to help children heal, and I mentioned crying, but there's the other aspect, and the play and laughter are also very therapeutic. And so we can actually help children work through a lot of traumas in their lives through play, certain forms of play. I mean, you can help them reenact a hospitalization with a doctor kit and all that. But also there's forms of play that can help with discipline issues. So, like if a child is very angry at you, for example, the parent, and we're talking about, a young child, you can invite the child, say, okay, why don't you just hit me with a pillow? Let's just have a pillow fight, get that anger out and get the child laughing. And have the child express that emotions, turn it into a game, and then of course you have to make an effort to lose, to fall down dramatically and say, oh, you knocked me down, you're so strong. I call it power reversal games. And those are very therapeutic. I recommend those a lot.
It kind of levels the playing field.
Yeah, that can be very beneficial for the parent.
No pun intended.
For the parent-child relationship, very beneficial. And then also, any hiding game or chasing game is helpful for dealing with fears of separation or separation trauma, or even parents who have been emotionally unavailable. It can be helpful just to play separation games, hide and seek. There's just a lot of good, wholesome play that we can do, parent-child play, that helps not only with discipline, but with trauma, with healing from stress and trauma too.
And I would think that would be incredibly beneficial to the relationship between the parent and the child, because it's giving the parent an opportunity to be present, and give quality time to the child, which is one thing that I found very challenging. I was a single parent. I raised my son. I worked a full-time job during the day, and I also had a part-time job in the evenings when my son was a teenager. So it was very challenging to really find that quality time. I mean, I managed to do it, but not so much when he was little. When I was juggling a lot.
Yeah, it's difficult being a single mom. Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah.
But he grew up great, though. He's fabulous.
Well, it's tough being a single dad too, just for the record.
And a single dad, a single parent.
Exactly. In fact, I'm wondering, especially as I'm thinking about my son who is 16, is it ever too late after, passing all these formative years, the first 6 years, 7 years, where, kind of missed the boat here on aware parenting. Now he's 16. Can I introduce and really start to practice now and have it be effective?
Yes. I recommend parents with teenagers to start with family meetings, having family meetings, and also just basically listening. I mean, maybe you already do that, but just to start, if there's any tension at all in the relationship, just think of yourself as a listener and just listen, and seeing if he'll open up and talk about his life. That you can't go wrong just listening. Listen more, give advice less, And family meetings are a good way to start if you're wanting to move a little away from authoritarian, more into the democratic approach. Family meetings are a great way to start. Yeah, it's never too late. It's never too late.
It's never too late
to improve your relationship with a child, even an adult child.
Even an adult child.
Yeah.
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 Right.
And that's the nice thing about this approach. I mean, even if we've made mistakes, and everybody does, every parent makes mistakes. I made mistakes with my kids. I didn't have, my books. I mean, I basically wrote, the first book I wrote was a book I wished I had had as a new mother. Mm-hmm. But we can always repair the mistake, because this approach is not only a preventive parenting, it's therapeutic parenting. Mm-hmm. So we can help repair the connection, the relationship. We can help our children heal from our own mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's very important. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
We're coming to the end of the show. I can't believe it. It just flew.
I know.
I know.
Well, I guess time flies when we're having fun here and engage in such an important conversation.
I have one more question I'd like to wrap the show with, and that is, I think you have seen our shows before, so you know what we're up to about our consciousness and really being aware that we're energy beings in physical form and we're creators of our reality. It's important for us to be responsible and own our power to create our reality. How does our definition of consciousness blend with your work in awareness, parent awareness?
Well, aware parenting, I use the word aware in two senses. It's being aware of children and their needs, but also being aware of ourselves, like we discussed a little bit already. Being aware of ourselves, being aware of distinguishing between the present and the past, knowing that what happened to us in the past is gone, and we need to heal from that, and trying to live in the present, totally in the present. That's why I like to get conscious now. I mean, it's the present moment that counts. We are an adult with a child. The child may be triggering a childhood memory in us, some trauma. Maybe we're feeling like a 3-year-old at that time with our own mother who maybe hit us for doing the very thing our child is doing. But we're not that 3-year-old child right now. We're an adult, and we need to be aware of who we are right now in the present moment. So that's the important.
Yeah.
And do you have a pearl of wisdom, a very short, cogent pearl of wisdom that you might give to our viewers? And you can look right into that camera over there.
I think to raise children this way, it's really important to get help and to not try to do it alone. And we talked about the difficulty of being single parent. In the past, humans lived in extended family groups we were hunter-gatherers, we had tribes, and no parent was ever alone with their children. That just didn't happen.
It takes a village kind of concept.
It takes a village. I mean, it's been said many times, but you can't say
Get
it too
help,
much.
people.
It takes a village. We have to
Thank
create
you.
our tribes. We have to get help, and it's just not our fault if we don't measure up to being the kind of parents we want to be. It's probably because we're not getting enough help.
So thank you so much. This was a
Thank you,
wonderful
Aletha.
interview. You were a delight to interview, and the information is so important for everybody, no matter where we are in that role.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
really
you for having me
pleasure.
on the show.
Total
I
pleasure.
really enjoyed
Yeah.
talking
Thank you so
with
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
And now it's time for Quantum Quotes, featuring the wit and wisdom of our very own Patricia Diorio. Patricia, take it away.
Thank you, Stu. So clearly, children are our future, and how they're raised determines the future of our world and the evolution of humanity, really. So in finding the perfect quote, I was inspired by the fact that our guest tonight, Dr. Aletha Solter, studied with Piaget early in her career. Piaget lived between the years of 1876 and 1980 in Switzerland, and he is known as probably the world's most renowned developmental psychologist with his work with the cognitive development of children. So I went online and there were lots of quotes by Piaget, but this is the one that spoke to me the loudest. This is what he says. If you want to be creative, stay in part a child with the creativity and invention that characterizes children before they are deformed by adult society. Wow, strong word there, deformed. This is a powerful, powerful quote. And on the one hand, it gives us hope that the child within us is alive and well, and that we can access that child again. In my personal and professional experience, I would say that many of us have really lost that connection to our inquisitive, curious, wonder, excitement of our childhood and what we actually came in with. And as Piaget says, we get deformed by society. Deepak Chopra calls it societal conditioning. And Dr. Bruce Lipton calls it being programmed by our beliefs, imprints and programs, mostly by our parents. Now, I really do believe that our parents love us. Our parents do love us, but they love us to the extent that they love themselves. And we love to the extent that we love ourselves. And in my experience as a counselor, I would say that not many of us have been taught to love ourselves. But the good news is that it's not too late. We can love ourselves and honor and appreciate who we are by simply being aware of the importance of that. So how do we do that? We make a decision. Everything is a choice. We shift our perception and we make that decision that it's time to love, honor, and appreciate ourselves. And it's time to love and nurture that child within us that perhaps really didn't have a chance to express his or her feelings as a little child, or to express her curiosity or wonder or excitement that really comes with childhood. So I invite you to be present to the importance of loving yourself, honoring yourself, and appreciating yourself. And allowing this to be the vehicle for the play to come forward, where the seat of our creativity lies. So enjoy yourself as that little child, and honor yourself as that little child, and let your creativity come forth and play, and this truly leads to happiness and to the kind of world that we all want to live in. So today I've asked Stu to do the honor of closing our show with Stu's views, because it's the perfect segue from Quantum Quotes today to something that you can really take home and apply to your lives. Stu?
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody. This time around for Stu's Views, we're extending the theme of parenting to going transparenting. Okay, what I'm talking about here is being transparent and really getting to the core of what's inside of us and let it out. Okay, and what's amazing about it is we get to come full circle now, because what we're really letting out is our eternal childlike essence that's inside of us. That part of us that can still marvel at a sunset. That part of us that still gets excited at a game where you don't know what's going to happen next, where you get excited when a touchdown or your team does what you want it to do. There are things about life that we know get us so juicy and so excited and so thrilled just to be here. And what I'm inviting in is that being transparent with it. Let it out. Let it out. I was born in 57. So now I am 57. Okay? As far as I'm concerned, I was born in 57 and I'm being born again at 57, as far as I'm concerned. Because I look around and I see so much amazing wonder, so many new things every single day. No matter how many experiences, no matter how much my body has gone through in 57 years, I still amaze at some of the things that take place every day, okay? Whether it's the technology that takes place, the ability for me to get to one place to another just like that, or to communicate with people across the country just like that. You know, it's remarkable. And the wonder shows up in so many different ways, and including connecting with my children. And even no matter how long I've been with them, I can still look in their eyes and I can just feel so much love and so much joy. And I want to give a special call out to my son Kai, who is not mine biologically, and yet I love him every bit as much as I love all the children who've got more of this genetic pool in their system. You know, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's so incredible. And that's what I'm inviting in for each of you out there, that even if you are not parents, in the sense that you don't have children, tap into your own and really take a look around and consider ultimately that there is something much bigger than all of us. This consciousness, this one field that encapsulates all of us, that created all of this amazing potential amusement park called Planet Earth for its own delight, and created all of us in its own delight. So why not take advantage of it? Why not bring in that childlike innocence, that sense of wonder? And the more wonder we have in our lives, the more wonderful it is. So that's it for Stu's Views. Be transparent. Bring in the love, bring in the joy, bring in the childlike wonder. And with that, Patricia, it's been another wonderful program, sweetheart.
Fabulous program, and I loved your comments.
Well, thank you. And
Stu's
I love
Views was really off the charts.
Well, sweetie, I loved your quote as well, and I loved having Aletha here as well to bring in conscious parenting, because it makes all the difference in the world.
It does.
It really does. And it can literally make a difference in our world to have a group of children, including us older ones.
Yeah.
Including us older ones out there.
Yeah.
Have all the generations now wake up and in this great conscious now, really take in that now. And it's a brand new moment.
So thank you all very much for tuning in to Get Conscious Now. And remember, go to our YouTube channel to watch all the other shows that we've done, and we'll see you next time. And until then, get conscious.
Get conscious now.
Now.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
Hello, I'm Twyla Kim. I've been an artist and hairstylist in Santa Barbara for 20 years. I personalize color, design, and precision haircuts for each individual at Sequel Salon in Montecito. I'm happy to be sponsoring Get Conscious Now.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with them and watch them.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field to keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.